Hello, everybody, and welcome to my Independence Report, the new version. I know my Independence Report has been around since 2019 and has over 450 episodes, all centered around the thought that we are declaring our independence from hate, division, and fear. If you remember, it was about that time that we entered the pandemic years in January of 2020. Oddly enough, my state of Washington was the first state affected. Entering into the new beginning stages, everyone was concerned because no one knew how big it would become and how many would die. Each day I would watch the press conferences from New York and Washington, D.C. The president at the time, Donald Trump, would get up and talk about everything that he thought he could do. First of all, he said it was nothing, and then it was something, and then maybe bleach could fix it. He didn't know, and nobody really did. Everyone elsewhere was trying to figure out the best way to protect ourselves as people we knew were hospitalized, and I know many who died. I think pretty much everybody did at that time. It was a very, very difficult period of time to go through. Our country at that time was and still is in turmoil, not just from the pandemic, but politically, socially, and environmentally. As Bob Dylan sang about years earlier, times they be a-changin'. These changes really began in early 2000 with the election of George W. Bush. As you may recall, the election was so close that the Supreme Court ultimately decided the outcome 271 to 266 electoral votes. Now, some may say that it was the Clinton impeachment that did play a part, but he was reelected overwhelmingly in 96, 379 to 159 electoral votes, and the country was fractured from then on, except for 9/11, when the country came together in a huge show of patriotism, and we put aside the differences we had created. But sadly, it did not last. We invaded Afghanistan and then in 2003, Iraq. At first, most were sure it would be a short, easy victory, but as the months dragged into years and the cost rose in both human lives and treasure, things changed. Even though at first George W., as he came to be known, was very popular in the election of 2004, he had only 286 electoral votes to 251 for John Kerry, much closer than expected. Over the next 4 years, things began to really change. Deficits had exploded. The wars dragged on. The politics became personal, and conspiracy theories abounded. Oh, sure, there had always been things around like the moon landing and the JFK assassination, and others occupied the fringes of society, but with the advent of the internet, they exploded. Chief among them was the birther movement, which was about Barack Obama's birthplace, which was Hawaii, but his father was from Kenya, so some believed that he was born there, making him ineligible to run for president. One of the chief proponents of this theory entered Donald J. Trump. During the run-up to the 2008 election, which he entered as a Republican, the other candidates and what would be called the mainstream media gave him little chance of making an impact, let alone winning. But they all misjudged the mood in many parts of the country. Many people were angry, scared, and tired of the same old thing. Politicians, taxes, lack of good-paying jobs, immigrants taking their jobs, the media, government, war, and so many issues, some true, but many were just made up. But mostly, the fast-changing world which was out of their control. Mr. Trump, to his credit, recognized this unhappiness in the country and used it for his own purposes, and thus the MAGA, or Make America Great Again movement, began. And so was the use of hate, division, and fear as a tool. A tool not to talk about differing policies between parties, but to villainize the opponent into something evil. No one was above this tactic. Anyone that disagreed with him was subject to it, and still is. What he did not count on was the fact that not only did he stir his lovingly loyal base up, he also unlocked the passion of the majority of the country. So in 2020, he lost the election 306 to 232 electoral votes, with the most people voting in the history of the country, 66.7%. Before, during, and after Election Day, Trump and numerous other Republicans engaged in an aggressive and unprecedented attempt to subvert the election and overturn the results, falsely alleging widespread voter fraud and trying to influence the vote counting process in swing states in what was described by many as an attempted coup d'etat, or more specifically, an attempted self-coup. Attorney General William Barr and officials in each of the 50 states found no evidence of widespread fraud or irregularities in the election. Federal agencies overseeing election security said it was the most secure in American history. But this fact was lost on Mr. Trump, and he and his followers believe to this day that the election was rigged and he actually won a landslide victory. Many people assumed wrongly that in his advanced age of 78 years that he would quit. Well, not so fast. He's back and has claimed the nomination for the Republican Party again, and has repeatedly promised to seek vengeance against anyone who defied him, and that he would never leave office again, becoming a de facto dictator. This is why my Independence Report has returned to help us all live in peace and eliminate hate, division, and fear, and replace it with kindness, respect, and love. Understanding that we are all one people, regardless of sex, color, or sexual orientation. I invite you to join me in this quest for the soul of America. In future shows, we will discuss current events, conspiracy theories, as well as ways to live a happier, more fulfilling life. This is the mission of my life, and I hope that you will join me as we make it clear that we are not going to stand for division, hate, and fear anymore, that we all want to come together as one to live as a happy people, leading the world in a way that has never been before. Again, thank you very much. My name is Kevin McDonald, and you're listening to my Independence Report.